Amy and Henry. Welcome to a new episode of Discover the District. I've heard some discussion recently about electric buses being added to the district's transportation fleet as part of an updated district transportation plan. Patrick Rock is the district's director of transportation and oversees all aspects of what we have going on and is the point person on electric buses. What do you say we go visit Patrick and see what he has cooking here in the transportation department? Electric buses are possibly part of a new transportation plan. Tell me about what that transportation plan is and how electric buses might be a part of it.
Well, we began with the board discussion back in September about their wanting to really start purchasing as part of the green initiative to get electric buses for Mercer Island. We talked to them about taking the time to come up with a long-term transportation plan because we just were coming out of the COVID where everything was just a little bit crazy, and we wanted to have some time to really study, okay, what is really, not just about electric buses, but what is the future of our transportation department here on Mercer Island. And so after the board gave us the go-ahead, we began to look at transportation as it is today and try to figure out, okay, what does the future of transportation on Mercer Island look like? And a part of that is electric buses.
How many bus drivers does the district have?
In the bus, we have 40 bus drivers. Of that 40, some of those are substitute drivers, and some of the substitutes will only drive trips in the evening. Some of them fill in whenever there's an absence for a driver. But we have, right now we have 24 full-time bus drivers.
What's a typical schedule like for a bus driver?
Typically our schedule starts, the average driver will come in at 7:20 in the morning. He'll spend about 15 minutes checking his buses to make sure they're safe, checking all the fluids, checking the tires, checking the seats, checking everything on a bus to make sure that it's safe before we go out and start picking up children. They leave out of the lot about 15 minutes after that, and they start staging for their routes. And they'll begin their middle school routes in the morning, and they'll pick up all their middle school kids on the routes. They'll drop them off at the IMS in the south end, and then they have about 15 minutes to get back to where they're going to stage routes for the elementary routes. So all of our routes have either a high school and elementary portion or a middle school and elementary portion.
Okay, so you mentioned routes. How do routes get determined? Who goes where? Who picks it? Is it based on the school, where the students live?
And so at this time of year, every spring, I begin looking at the next year, and I begin to graph out exactly where everybody's living right now and how many of those kids went from elementary to the middle school and middle school to the high school, and so that we can look at numbers and where people live. And we put everything out on a map of the island. And so I can, take my map, and this is where all the 8th graders live. This is where all the 7th graders live. And so I can look at that and kind of figure out, just by spotting things, where our heaviest concentration of students are. And that's usually where I start building routes, is in the pockets for the middle school where the heaviest concentration of middle school kids are. And then I build those routes, the biggest routes first, and I try to fill them as full as we can get them on those buses, because while we don't travel a long distance on the island, everybody on the island gets a ride to middle school almost. Our boundaries are just, if you live more than 3/4 of a mile from the middle school, you get offered a ride.
Tell me about Roy Ellingsen.
Roy is an institution on Mercer Island. He grew up and he went to all grades of school here. You listen to him tell stories of when there were just dirt roads on Mercer Island. It's funny. But I'll be in a meeting that is not just about bus drivers, but other people in the district, and they're asking about different things in transportation. And several of our teachers were kids on Roy's route, and their kids are on Roy's route now, and so he's been driving bus basically since he graduated.
Wow.
And it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is.
What kind of timeline are we looking at for electric buses in the district? Is it an aggressive timeline, or is it something that we have to plan out several months or years in advance?
So by the year 2030, all of our buses on routes will be electric buses.
Really?
That's how aggressive the plan is.
Wow.
It's pretty exciting to me. Let's see. We'll have 16 big buses and 14 small buses.
To make the 30 by 2030.
Yeah.
Wow. what are you doing right now to prepare for that? What do you have to do?
So I've got a bunch of grants for infrastructure. I'm meeting with a company tomorrow to bring Wi-Fi on the buses, and it's through a grant process that they can do that. So we met with Puget Sound Energy to start. Okay, we can probably the first 5. We don't have to make major changes in our lot. After 5, though, we need to tear up the lot and totally
for charging stations.
For charging stations for all these buses.
Yeah.
We've been researching all the charging stations. I mean, there's hundreds of different styles, and we're actually probably going to make the first charger purchase. We'll order it probably in the next 2 weeks.
Oh wow!
We ordered our first 2 electric buses about a month ago.
Okay.
And we should have them. The goal is by the end of August, but probably realistically it'll be November. And we'll get our first 2 buses and we'll start doing it. So
nice.
It is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Discover the District. I owe a big thanks to Patrick Rock for showing me around and telling me all about what we have going on here at the Transportation Department. Bus drivers Dan Stednick and Pete Tarnarwa were a big help. We had GoPro cameras on their buses for routes from Islander Middle School. Thanks to them for helping me out with that. You also saw drone footage of the bus yard. Those were shot by Tim Taylor. He's the mechanic here at the Transportation Department, so big thanks to him. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll talk to you soon.